Hi guys, and welcome to, I'm going to call this, it's called Metaphysical Chat, and Kay Horn has joined me again today. Hi Kay,
Hi, Joy.
how are you doing?
I'm good. Love your fish.
Thanks. It's our virtual background. So today our conversation is going to be about fear. And
Right.
I'm going to talk a little bit about what fear means to me. The first time I ever heard a concept about fear, it was called, it was from Conversations with God. And
Right.
how fear was described in there with those conversations with God is called false evidence appearing real.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how you feel about that, Kay, but that's what it always reminded me of, is false evidence appearing real. What ends up happening is our ego kind of hooks into what fear is all about, and it starts making things really real for us.
Exactly.
And
Right.
and yet, a lot of the conversations that we have going on in our head aren't real. They're really
Yeah.
not real. It's the stories that we make up about those situations, about
That's
things that are
true.
coming up.
Yeah.
So this conversation that we're going to talk about today, in case joining me, and by all means, if anyone wants to join in and has any questions, please ask any questions you may have. We're going to touch base on fear of the unknown,
hmm
fear of ghosts and negative energies or
hmm
entities, how to stop negative thoughts, and being powerful when you are in the state of fear. So these
Right.
are the topics that we're going to touch base over the next hour. And if anyone wants to join in and have any questions, by all means, let me know. Raise your hand. I'll be more than happy to go ahead and unmute your microphone so you can participate with us.
Yes.
So let's tackle the first one, Kay.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about fear of the unknown. What does that represent to you?
Right. Well, I go through that quite a bit. I torque myself up and finally get tired of being so spun around that I just like, and I will just plow through it. That's how I handle it. But fear can keep you from doing things, and it can really make a big difference in how you live your life. So, especially in this day and age. So I just try to remember to call upon my guides and angels, whatever soothes me.
New message is received from Agnes.
Sorry, whatever soothes me. And I focus on that.
I'm going to
So,
tell you what I've learned, I guess, stepping in this over the past couple of years. When I say couple of years, gee, it's been probably, how long have I been in business? 15 years. So it's been a while.
a
But
little while, huh?
part of how I feel about it is some of what comes forward for me is fear doesn't necessarily go away from me. It's not that I'm not in this state of fear on certain things that show up for me, but it's
Right.
almost like you plow through it. It's kind
Yeah,
of like you don't allow it to freeze you, you don't allow it to stop you. You just allow yourself to kind of plow through it.
right. Take a deep breath and just jump in.
So
And
I think that's part of what most people don't. They wait for the right answer. They don't just
yeah,
necessarily step into it and just go through it. I think when people are more connected to their guides and to their angels or to that internal guidance, whatever label they want to put on it,
right.
New
spirit
message is
guides, angels, things of that nature, I feel like I trust that they're not going to have me make a mistake. So I just take those steps forward and know that I'm supported by spirit in those decisions that I make, and take those steps forward.
Right. That's difficult. It's not easy. There's not anything easy about that, to just take a deep breath and say, okay, I can do this. But it has a lot to do with recognizing that you are in fear and understanding that you can push through this and that you do have means to protect yourself, to call upon those. That helps relax your energies, and it creates a much easier, pleasurable experience rather than one of fright, and terror.
So let's talk about some examples of fear of the unknown.
Okay.
Okay. What have been some of your experiences of your fear of the unknown?
Well, when I started painting, for example, I kind of had a fear of mass consciousness, actually. It's like I can talk to people all day one-on-one, but when it comes to like doing something like this, and I've just now recently, doing something like this, I just didn't trust it so much. And I think that had to do with a past life remembrance that I wasn't aware of at the time. But once I became aware of it, I go, okay, that was then, this is now, and there's nothing for me to be fearful of. But the key point there was trusting that things would be all right. And that's a big, big factor in facing the unknown, I think.
I would probably say one of my biggest fears was always of the future. That's another fear of the unknown.
Yes.
Some of us look at the situation that we're in today and we don't see a way out of it. So we're always, fearful of the future. What is the future going to hold? What's going to happen next week? What's going to happen next month? What's going to happen next year? Part of it is it's learning how to stay. I always tell people it's learning how to stay in the present moment.
Yes.
It's setting up with your guides and your angels or spirit. I don't care what label you want to give spirit,
right.
Whether you want to call it angels or guides. But part of it is we sometimes don't set ourselves up for the miracles that can happen in the now moment.
That's for sure. We don't even recognize what the now moment is a lot of times, So recognizing what being in the now means. Maybe you could talk about that for a moment.
I'll talk about what it means to be present in a now moment. And I'll give you guys probably one of my biggest examples that I have in my life is, when you're running a metaphysical store, and a lot of people know about my background and how I stepped out of corporate America and opened up my store in order to kind of live my passion, live what it is that I wanted to be passionate about on a regular basis.
Right.
There are many times, and one in particular I'll talk about is I didn't have enough money to pay the rent. Rent is due. It happens to be the first of the month. I am short by like $900. And I'm like, this is it. I've just turned around and like, I've put all my retirement into this. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. And this is it. I was so mad at spirit in that moment. Like, how can you let me down like this?
Right. I've done my part. Why aren't you doing your part? Right.
So that's how I felt. And then I'm in the back room and I'm almost to the state of tears and I don't know what direction I'm going to move in. And I'm just sitting there for about an hour. And then all of a sudden I get up and I walk into the store, and I had one of the people who were working for me at the time said, this lady just came in and spent $1,000. And I went, what?
Yes. Yeah.
What is that about? It was kind of like the rent showed up when the rent needed to show up. It didn't need to show up until that particular day.
Exactly, that moment.
At that moment. And what happened was I realized that I missed the miracle of that moment because I was stuck in fear about about what was going to happen 2 or 3 days. And what I realized is, sometimes we miss those miracles and that that moment. And it's about spirit doesn't understand time and space like we understand time and space.
Maybe we don't understand time and space.
And that's a true statement. Maybe we don't understand time and space. And maybe part of it was rent wasn't due until then, right? And part of where my head is, okay, it happens to be a Wednesday. A certain number of people are going to walk in. This is what's going to happen, and it's like, oh my God, I'm a week away from being able to pay the rent. How am I going to do this? And the truth of the matter is I wasn't a week away. I was moments away.
Right. Right. So it's just, I think the fear of the future is really the most frightening thing there is, because you just don't understand how things can work out. There's so many things that are working behind the scenes. The universe, just think about how you've met your mate. Primarily is how you met the person that you fell in love with, or the person that you married, or hopefully they're the same person, but just saying, you know, uh, you know, what it took to get that person to that place and time, and you to that place and time to meet. Took a whole lot of coordinating from a lot of forces that you don't even know about.
Right.
So it's trying to remember and trusting that those forces are always going to be there, always going to be there for you. And if not, something better will be there for you. That's one thing for me, is I expect things to be a certain way. You know, just like you did a second ago in your explanation there, your example. Things, the universe has a much better perspective and ideas of what I need. So I always think of that Rolling Stones song, you don't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. That's a theme in my life for sure. So I always get what I need. It's just a lot of times better than what I thought I wanted. So you just have to relax, and it's not easy. None of this is easy. Sometimes if you just relax and just give up, it gets easier, but it's hard to get to that point sometimes. So.
It's not giving up, it's surrendering.
Oh, there you go.
You know, I like using the word surrender, you know, surrendering to what is in the moment.
Right.
When you let go, I call it let go and let God.
There you go. That's a good thing to remember. Yeah, let go and let God, right, for sure.
That we try to fix it from our human perspective, and sometimes it's letting go and letting God, and understand that we're always guided in the moment. And what I try to tell people, you know, there's times when we talk about our ego, and I've had people who want to kill that aspect of themselves, you know, like, how do I control it? And I'm like, you don't want to control that aspect of yourself. You understand that's part of your humanness. That's part of your makeup. It's the same thing as your heart or your blood flowing through your body. It is an aspect of who you are. And it's not about destroying it, and it's not about controlling it. It's about, I say sometimes it's about talking it off the edge. And
there you go.
When people ask me, you know, don't you ever have fear? Because it appears that I don't. And the truth of the matter is I do. The difference is when I go into that place of fear, there's that other aspect of me that starts talking to my ego. And what I'll do is say, okay, I understand that you're fearful right now, but you know, let's look at where we are. Let's look at all the times that Spirit has shown up for us.
Right.
You know, that has shown up for us in our day-to-day life and has always been there for us. So it's almost like there's, you know, I always picture it as the two beings on our shoulders. Sometimes there's the devil side of us, which I don't necessarily mean it's the devil side of us.
Yeah.
The devil represents lived backwards. And actually, that's something that Malachite shared with me at one point, or Sam has shared with me, is, you know, look at the devil as being lived backwards. So the ego is always trying to protect you of times you were hurt.
Yes. Yes.
And then there's that angel side of us, which is the spirit side of us, who's always guiding us in the moment, and actually is fearless at some points.
Absolutely, because it knows it needs to trust, and it does trust. So the ego is just, that's where our fears are, and just recognizing that we have those fears, and understanding that just like we recognize it, we can also move through it and let it go by rationale, if nothing else, by saying, I've always been taken care of. That's why I like affirmations. I've said this so many times, because it helps me redirect my thinking. And that's where the problems are. It's like, if I would just relax and not think so much, I'd be so much better off. You know, just let it flow and move through it like a child. Because, you know, when we're children, we don't ever think about what time it is. We don't think about if we're going to eat or when we're going to eat. Most of us, when we were children, we just, you know, played until somebody yelled at us to eat. And so it was just very simple. So if we could learn to be more trusting that things are going to work out, it'd be so much easier. But I have my own problems with that too, so I deal with that a lot.
I think one of my, I want to say one of my guides happens to be a fairy. And that fairy, the name that I have for that fairy is Star, Starr, Star. And when I wanted to know why this fairy showed up in my particular life, it was to remind me when we were children. You know, when we were children, we lived in the present moment all the time. We're over here, we're going to play over here, we're going to do this, we're going to this friend's house, we're going to that friend's house. Always stayed in the present moment. So there was no fear that we really had around us as that child that's awake. And what was really funny is I'm sitting at my chiropractor's office, not that just turn around and say something funny. This is recent. I'm going to say within the past couple of weeks, I was just sitting there in the present moment, and I looked at my chiropractor's name, and my chiropractor's middle name was Star, Starr.
Wow.
And I took it as sort of a sign from spirit to remind me of that fairy energy of learning how to stay in the present moment. How do we stay in this present moment?
Well, this time and space that we're in right now, you know, today and have been the past few weeks, that's what we're all doing. We don't know what's going to happen. We're just staying home and doing the best that we can. And we're in the moment more so now than I think we've ever been in, I don't know, years and years and years. Don't you think so?
I think it really helps us refocus our energy.
Yes.
You know, it's really here to teach us how to refocus our energy at this particular time. And believe me, everyone has fears that are showing up for them. And when those fears show up, it's time to unplug. What I noticed, you know, every single day, I have learned how to unplug for about an hour, which means I go out in my backyard, I connect with my guides, I connect with my angels, I connect with spirit, and I get back to that present moment. And I look at what has me upset in that moment, what has, you know, what's bothering me at that moment, and learning how to refocus that attention.
Oh, that's a perfect way to relax and to let those energies flow through you. And to remember who and what you are, really, that you're there to have that experience in that moment, that place and time, and that, you know, you can connect with all creation that way. And we didn't have time to do that before. I guess we didn't remember to take time before recently, right?
Well, I mean, we're all jumping from one thing to the next. If I turn around and look at that, you know, we're jumping from one thing to the next, that none of us really focused on just being in the present moment. So this has really given us an opportunity to focus on the present moment.
For sure. Yeah.
So I want to talk, I'm going to move on to the next subject. I see that we have some folks in the chat here, and I know that I have some new messages. So I will read those. I just want to touch base on one other item, and then I'm going to go into the chat and read some of the messages that we have out there. So this has been one of my favorite, is to talk about fear of ghosts and fear of negative entities.
Yes.
And I'm going to kind of kick that off to you, Kay. I know I have my own idea about this, but I want you to talk a little bit about fear of ghosts and fear of negative entities.
Well, you know, the media doesn't help with any of that. All those ghost stories we were raised on, right? That doesn't help anything. We all remember being terrified once or twice by those things. But my guides have given me information on that, and they tell me that the negative energies, the negative entities, are primarily fears that have been focused upon with intense emotion. So if you think about ghosts, usually we find those in places that great traumatic experiences have occurred. So that's intense energy with a lot of emotion attached to it. So eventually that can kind of take on a life of its own. And people who are very empathic, they feel those energies more easily than someone who just totally disregards it. So it all depends on what your perspective is. If you're somebody who is looking for that kind of energy, oh yeah, you can find it. However, it's not like it's just waiting to just grab you and, bite you on the ankle or anything. It's not waiting. It's there. You have to be open for it, I think, for it to really damage you in a way. There, you have to be open to it some way to say, yeah, okay, well, let's see if that happens, and I'm open to it. And I never am, because I don't enjoy being frightened. But there are a lot of people who like that, because it gives you a quick charge of energy. So you're feeling that energy, and you feel exhilarated, and you feel excited, and some people get a charge out of that. So that's okay. That's okay. But it's not something that you just need to be frightened of all the time. If you go looking for it, you can find it. I don't go looking for it.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my background, because part of it was I was raised by what I would consider, my dad was more of a ghost hunter. He liked drawing ghosts, into the house, and being
Yes.
psychic and empathic. I would feel all these energies that would be showing up in the house, and they terrified me when I was younger.
Well, thanks, Dad, very much, huh?
Yeah. And so what I noticed about being terrified about it is it felt very real to me. So I would say, yes, ghost was there, and was negative energy there? The answer to that question was yes. I felt it as a lower vibration energy. But what happened was, when I turned about 22 years old, I had enough. I literally had enough of it. And I literally stood in the middle of every place that I went was haunted. So I literally stood in the middle of my living room. I stomped my foot and I said, I have had enough. Absolutely. It is time for you to go. I command that my guardian angels show up. I command that you send this energy away. I command that it happen now. And everything went from this really low vibration to this really, really high vibration. Right. That I thought, if I turned around to look, I would literally see Archangel Michael standing there. That's how positive and how high the energy was. And what I realized in that moment, that the only thing that changed was me.
Absolutely. And Michael was coming through you. So you called upon him, and your Michael energy became more expressive and more exuberant and more intense. And it was really your power, your personal power, that diminished all those other lower energies. So that's what people really need to know. You have the power. You do have the power.
Everyone has the power, and everyone has the power to send anything that they want to send away. And what I do is, when I work with kids who are frightened of ghosts, I'm pretty sure that's why I had the experience that I had. Is what ends up happening is everything mirrors everything. And what I mean by that is, I know that Spirit is going to send me kids that were similar to who I was when I was younger. Right. And my guidance is to teach them to call Archangel Michael, and to teach them how they can plug into that energy of that archangel in order to send those lower vibrations away, so they don't no longer have to be fearful of them.
No.
So my secret, or the message that I got from Spirit, is when I opened up a metaphysical store, part of it is we're stepping into our path. We're stepping into that aspect of ourselves that we've chosen to come on this planet to be. Absolutely. So in order to step forward, to be able to guide and assist others, we have to learn how to guide and assist ourselves.
For sure.
Before we can guide and assist other people.
Yes.
And what I learned in that moment, what was so amazing, is one time I had something that showed up that I would have called a lower vibration. I would have called negative. I actually watched something crawl across my floor that looked very ugly at that particular time. And I didn't even flinch. I just looked and I said, okay, it's just time for you to go. I have had enough of this. And all of a sudden it had this beautiful smile on its face, and its eyes became very light as it walked through the wall. And all I heard is, when you learn how to love your demons, they will become your angels.
There you go.
So in an aspect, it felt like it was a teacher. You're willing to step into this. And if you're willing to step into this, you have to become powerful and not be afraid of what shows up for you.
Right. So you and I are here to help people understand their power. The personal power. That's both of our messages to let people know you have the power.
You have the power to send anything away. You have the power within yourself. You have the power to call forward Archangel Michael or any guide or any archangel or any being that you want to call forward to assist you with anything.
So when you really truly understand and you embrace that you are a very powerful soul having a human experience, all of these things just seem so inconsequential compared to what you've imagined them to be in the past. Just always focus on, I am a powerful soul having a human experience, and you're just moving through this human experience as a very powerful being of love, energy, and light knowledge. So I always say, if you're in the darkness, just turn on that flashlight you got inside of you. That means turn on your power, acknowledge your power, embrace your power, show your power. Speak your power, think your power, and you'll be powerful.
And then learn how to pray powerfully. My biggest thing of sharing with people, I call it praying powerfully. What ends up happening is we've been taught over the years, if you've been in any kind of a church background, that we almost have to beg God for assistance, like please, like we're pleading for you to send any morsels that you can send our way. And what I started to share with people is, it's time for you to stomp your foot and command it. God doesn't have an ego. God doesn't say, hey, it's almost like saying, I command. It's that power and that energy you put behind it. So when you were standing there and you were fearful, there's nothing wrong with you stomping your foot and say, I command that you leave. Bring it, scream, yell, holler, just command for it to go away, and see the difference in the energy and the frequency around you.
They'll make all the difference in every aspect of your life, to just embrace who and what you are, and to use that power in every instance. And that will help with trusting. You're trusting your own power. Gosh, what could be more powerful than that? Than, ask for more than what you're really settled for. You never know, you may get it all. So why not? Go for broke.
So I am going to read some of the comments we have out here, and it looks like T, Ben, and Celeste have joined us, but they don't know how to turn their audio on their TV set. So hi, T. Hi, Ben. Hi, Celeste. And then I have Robert Payne, who's put a comment out there to everyone, and it says, Joy, one of Elise Marie's cats, new time and space. When I would worry like you did about the rent, the cat would look at me and say, silly human.
That's awesome. Listen to your cat.
And then we have Casey joining us again. Hi, Casey.
Hi.
And Casey wrote true. And then T wrote, does anyone else worry about our kids no longer spend time imagining and playing without electronic games and entertainment?
Yes.
I worry that their imagination does not develop, and we are all addicted to distractions. And I totally agree. Part of it is, it's funny because I always have had what I would call a vibrant imagination as a child. And I have a vibrant imagination as an adult as well. And when I say I agree with that, it's kind of like when I'm with my granddaughter, or even when I was with my stepson, or I was with my daughter, we would always play imagination games. I think there's nothing wrong with working with our kids and having imagination games, teaching them how to meditate, or how to sit there and how to dream and how to daydream about things. I think that's probably, I always call that our creative side. And that's that side that actually connects us to spirit. What's imagination? Imagination is us plugging it into our angels and our guides, and asking for assistance and for the power that exists within us.
Right, that's so true. Meditation, that's a whole lot of imagination. You're kicking in aspects of yourself that you could never imagine. And if you're so busy looking at a screen, how can you take time to do that? I think that's so important to use your imagination, especially as an artist, you know.
And that is what art is. It's connecting
Absolutely,
into that
imagination.
creative aspect. Even if you're sitting there doodling or
Right.
drawing, it's also
Right.
being creative as well.
Well, I find myself just being in the time and space that we are right now. I don't have exactly what I need to do the things. I don't think, I'm sure I could, but I don't want to go onto Michael's website and then go pick it up. So I try to use what I have around the house. And believe me, I have a lot of stuff I haven't used. So, I'm really getting to use some things I needed to. But, I'm being more creative in how I do everything, actually, and how we're even conversing right now. You and I today and all these people online with us, we would not probably be here without this happening, because we could go to the shop, we could go to the live fairs, but because we can't, we're using our imaginations to think outside the box, to do something
That's
different.
true.
So really,
And teach everyone how to stay connected.
yes.
So I got
absolutely.
another message from Robert Payne that came out to everyone, and it says, praying powerfully, yes. Jesus commanded his Father to heal someone. Yes, I worry about kids' imagination also. Many games and movies emphasize zombies.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's not so good.
And I agree with you, Robert, on that. It's one of the biggest I want to say aha moments that I had was when I first opened up my store, and I realized that I was praying to God, but it was coming from this weak perspective of how I was taught to pray.
Fear.
Of how I was taught to pray. And then one day I'm saying, well, wait a minute, why am I not commanding what it is that I needed? And what ended up happening is I started commanding what it is that I needed in that moment. And when I learned how to command what it is, the first thing I did is I wanted to teach others how to command what they needed.
Right. So you're learning to ask for things in a very adamant, emotional way, in a positive, emotional, adamant way, and not in a negative way. So, it's like, please send me. You're not begging. You're commanding, and I expect this. I want this now. Instead of saying, please, whenever you get a chance, maybe you could drop some by. No. You've got to be.
I mean, I can tell you guys a prime example, and I may have said something last week, so if I'm repeating myself for those that were here last week, I apologize. But my prime example was trying to get the Paycheck Protection Program through the SBA. And what happened was, it was like I had some sort of form that wasn't filed with the Secretary of State. They insisted that I needed it before I could actually get the loan. The Secretary of State's office was closed. They were getting ready to release money that was set on the side to me to give it to someone else. And there was nothing I could do at that particular moment. And I literally sat here and I said, Archangel Michael, you fix this now. I need this fixed now. It was like I must have said it 3 times. And all of a sudden the phone rings and they said, you know what, we're just going to make an exception for you. Just get it to us within the next couple of weeks. And it was like that, it was fixed. Really, a bank who needed a certain document is going to, make an exception. They can. And it was just about getting that fixed for myself in that moment. And I realized, no matter what it is that we're going through, it's learning how to ask. And I wasn't asking like from an angry, some people think when you command, it's from an ego perspective. No, it is from a power perspective.
It is.
It's about being powerful with what it is you need in that moment at that time. They don't have egos. That's a human expression.
Well, I think it's just another word for fear, frankly, but that's how I look at it. And we need a few fears, but not very many anymore. But I think that was so powerful that you commanded it. And by commanding it like that, actually, as you're bringing it forth, you're accepting it. So that's a big thing, because I've talked to a lot of people who they want to make changes in their life and they want things to be differently, but they're not really in the accepting mode. So nothing has changed. So by commanding it, like you said, you accepted it and you proclaimed that it was yours all at the same time. And so it was.
So we have another comment. We have another question out there. What about the fear of people not being accepting of what we know or feel? That's a good one.
Yes.
That is more about honoring yourself. And what I mean by that, what I mean by honoring yourself is a lot of people want people to like them. So they
Right.
have a tendency of not being true to who they are.
Exactly.
Okay. And part of it is, it's like you do get to a point. I have to say, this was probably a big one for me. I made a huge change in my life from who I was to who I am today.
Oh, yes, me too. Uh-huh.
And when I
Well,
made that change, you know, I wanted people to kind of accept me, like me, realize why I was trying to do things. And then I got to the place where I wasn't being true to me.
right. You're being
You
true
know,
to
like
them.
I wasn't
Same.
honoring who I am. I wasn't
Right.
honoring myself. So part of that is being willing to go out there, tell people who you are, and you
Right.
don't need their acceptance.
No. I mean, I fought with that myself, especially because if anyone out there that's had a painting with me, they'll know that I tell them some pretty far out things about themselves and life and what's going on. I mean, and I wear about 5 pieces of Moldavite, so, I can channel my butt off. So I'm telling you some stuff. I can't maybe hold a conversation with you like, what's your name, but I can. So it's really frightening to put yourself out there like that, but you just push through and go, okay, so what? This is it, and I'm just going to do it. I think that's one of the nicest things about getting older. That's what I've discovered. I'm old enough now. It's like, oh, I don't care. I don't have that much more time, maybe I do, maybe I don't, but this is what is going on for me right now, today. So there you go.
And it's also accepting yourself for who you are, and it's self-love. It has a lot to do with self-love. And when you worry about what other people think, you're not honoring or loving yourself. So what
Yeah.
I would do is, if I say something and someone gets upset and I get up and I'm upset because they're upset, I look and say, okay, what part of me am I not honoring in this moment?
Right.
What are
Right.
they a reflection of? Can I
Right.
be powerful of who I am and put that out there and not really worry about what other people think? People are going to think what they're going to think. Their ego, you're allowing their ego to stop you, because past that judgment is a pure soul.
Right, for sure. Uh-huh.
And you're just allowing their ego to judge you instead of honoring them as the soul of who they are.
Right. So, yes, honoring them to have a different opinion than yours.
Right.
And that's okay. That's their prerogative. And that's another whole thing we could talk about, is honoring, somebody else's decisions. We don't have to like them, but that's a whole, no.
That's our next metaphysical chat.
Exactly. There you go. But today, and I think all of this goes back to trust.
Right.
So it's trusting that it's going to be okay, and what their decision is to react in whatever way, that's their choice, and that's their prerogative, and that's a right and a freedom that they have.
And when you're true to yourself, you will have people show up to you, okay, that will turn around and say, thank you so much for sharing that information. It meant so much to me. Yes. And so you never want to close that aspect of yourself away from the world, because that's who you are from a spiritual perspective.
Right, right. And you have these things to say for a purpose. So, you just try to remember to say them in a kind manner.
Right.
So, remember, I guess I always try to remember how I want to be treated. And I don't mind discussing anything or hearing anything from anybody, but I expect them to have a respectful tone about it.
I think what I noticed is I had Spirit tell me, okay, your job is to just step forward and be who you are. Okay. And if someone isn't ready to hear what you have to say, then they're just not ready to hear what you have to say. But remember, always say what's coming from your heart, because you could be the first person on their path that is meant to be the first sign for them to wake up somewhere down the road.
But Joy, there's always balance in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think you need to kind of think about, like, choose your battles, number one. Is it something you want to battle? If it's an opposing opinion. Number two is deciding if this is the right time and place. and whether or not it's really worth it to you to go through the emotion that it will take to deal with whatever their opposing thoughts would be or reactions to you could be.
Mhm.
So it's always best to be compassionate and kind and try to figure out where they're coming from and respectful of that. And even if they're not honoring you, so be it. Just move on down the road. You'll be,
My
you know,
favorite story about this, I'm going to tell a little story here, is
Okay.
I had a person walk into my store who was very Baptist. Okay. And I watched as they walked into my store, and all of a sudden they realized they're in the middle of the metaphysical store, and I could see as they start shaking, okay, like they're in the wrong place. And they go to walk to the door, and all of a sudden they freeze. They can't walk out of the front door. They just stand there. So I immediately take this as a sign. It's not an accident that they walked into the store. This is where they were meant to walk in, and they start hearing people talk about chakras. So they turned around and they walked in, and they wanted to know a little bit more about chakras. And they turned to me and they asked me, they said, okay, she says, so how do you reconcile Jesus with all this stuff? And so where I come from, one of my guides is Jesus. I can't even begin to tell you, there's times that his words just, I literally channel, I feel him in my heart, and these words just flow out of my mouth. And part of it is I turn around and I said, this is all about Jesus. What part of this wouldn't be about Jesus? Jesus was love each other as you would love yourself. It's like, do not judge others. I said, so from a metaphysical perspective, I feel Jesus was the first metaphysician.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he could be any place, any time, and he's an example of how we all can be.
Right. I said, from where I sit is Jesus pointed the way. I said, Jesus pointed the way, and everyone looked at his finger.
Right. So
it's kind of like, even from Reiki energy healing, even from calling that power from within ourselves, even to knowing that God is within us, everything that he taught is about metaphysics as far as I'm concerned. And I knew that I had to be gentle and talking to her in that moment and sharing. And when I shared information with her, her whole world shifted. Her fear shifted. What we did shifted. So part of that is honoring people where they are too. You don't need to ram it down their throat.
No.
It's like realizing that some of them are at a state of fear, how they were raised, how they were told that this metaphysical stuff is, how they thought metaphysical stores existed. They came from the state of fear, so it's about us guiding them one step at a time.
Right, and it's all about love, and love is another word for kindness, isn't it?
It is.
So Jesus was all about kindness and all about love. So, gosh, I think a metaphysical store is just all about love and light, and how to deal with life in a different way than what we've been taught before.
So we have a statement from Casey, and Casey has been using this time during COVID to go out for walks and bike rides. It's been wonderful. Casey, I can't even tell you, I have been doing the same thing. I have literally, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, how many times did I just work nonstop and didn't even think about going for walks and things of that nature, and just giving myself permission for that time.
Right. Yeah, this is like the best of times and the worst of times too. It's so there's so many different opportunities to expand your consciousness and your
I do enjoy the opportunities, and what it's been an eye-opening experience for me, because I spend my whole life going, and just never taking any time for myself. And I realize, I'm like, oh, I need to learn how to do this more. I need to learn how to sit quiet. I need to learn how to be at peace. I need to learn how to go for walks. I need to learn how to, do some, my big thing is I don't exercise a whole lot, because I'll tell you, I don't have time to do it. I mean, that is,
Shoot, I've been exercising as I'm watching YouTube videos. I learned how to groom my schnauzer today, and I'm marching up and down in place, because my butt's sore from sitting so much. So, I've got to move a little bit. And yeah, I think it's just remembering to schedule those times, because we all have calendars, we all have times, and it's like it's just as easy to schedule, 30 minutes walking, and that counts just as much as anything else, or standing in place and marching, or whatever it takes to just move your body and to feel like you breathe deeply.
So I got another one from Casey that says, that's awesome. I'm learning to take my expectations out of the outcome and see much more flow. I agree.
Oh, well said. Yes.
Well said. That is extremely
Yeah.
well said. Because
Really?
what I notice is when I take my expectations out of certain things, they become better than
Yeah.
what I could have made up in my own head.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that's what I was talking about earlier. Yeah. Take your expectations out.
I have another one from Robert Payne that says, I mentioned screens showing zombies because they are negative energies. A similar theme, FNAF is in a very popular game and is popular on YouTube. Try not to laugh at the animations. I am not sure about this. I do totally agree that, I don't know about UK, okay, but being empathic, I can't watch those shoot 'em up movies nonstop.
No, I can't either. And what strikes me about zombies is, number one, they're dirty, so that's icky to me. I want to hose them down right off the bat, get some water on them, just hose them down, kind of moisturize them a little bit. But what I notice most about them is that they have no life force.
Right.
So, where's that? So that's the most important thing, is to have your life force and your emotions attached, and take a bath and shower. Those are things important to me. So I don't understand the whole zombie thing. I'm more like a vampire person myself, so I don't get this zombie thing at all.
I think part of it is, it's like, if it's a lot of shoot 'em up or violence or things of that nature, being an empath, I used to feel it, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I can't watch them anymore either. I don't know how people do that. They must have turned their emotions off, because I can't do it anymore.
I like things that make me laugh. I like,
Yes.
movies that are about being, happy and things of that nature.
Right.
Things like that is what I usually try to plug myself into.
Yeah.
Our next one is, Kay, I'm going to let you take this one. It's how to stop negative thoughts.
Oh, geez, yes. I get myself in some thought tornadoes frequently. But I'm learning, how to balance myself by saying affirmations. So there's one in particular that I write on a lot of people's their canvases and their paintings that I do. And the one that I try to remember is, all is well in my world. It's very simple, and it fits most everything. It's easy to remember. So that helps me to remember, oh yeah, everything's going to be taken care of. There are some other ones, I am powerful. I am radiantly alive and well. So I use affirmations all day, every day, to help shift my perspective and to help me remember. It's like putting a stopper in place for those negative thoughts, and so that I can stop and rebalance, reshift my focus in a different direction, in a more positive direction, with a positive thought that can lead me down the path where I'd really like to go, So they're tremendous for me. And so I'm a big proponent of affirmations. There's so many good ones out there. And especially, you can say, I like this one in particular, and I'm using the example of money, and it's like, money comes easily to me, or joy and happiness comes easily to me. Radiant good health comes easily to me. Beautiful relationships come easily to me. Radiant joy and love come easily to me. So those are some of my favorites, and they help me tremendously. They've helped me recover from the loss of my husband and my mother and my grandson, and to move forward in my life. Without those, I probably wouldn't be here, because I had to just fake it until I made it. There were many times I'd be driving down the road saying, I am joyous, I am happy, with tears streaming down my face. And I just had to keep focusing on the positive aspects of life so I could move on. And finally, my brain got the idea and I moved forward with it. So it's been a lifesaver for me.
One of my favorite is some mirror work that I used to do. And I actually got this again from, it was an affirmation that we did at a class probably years ago when Sayon was here teaching a class. We did mirror work, and it's, I am with you. I love you. I am willing to love you in all ways. I am here. I am with you. I am willing to love you in all ways. And we did that looking at our own eyes in the mirror. And it was funny when I would turn around and have like aspects of my life where it felt like it was falling apart and I was being very self-judgmental at that moment. Would I turn around and I would say, I am here, I am with you, I am willing to love you in all ways. And I would have my hands on the mirror, looking myself deep in my own eyes, saying that. And what I noticed, what they did for me is, are you willing to love yourself in all ways? What does that mean? That means loving the good, the bad, all aspects of yourself.
I found that another thing that's really good is gratitude. If you just really get in a dark space or any kind of space, gratitude always makes a big difference. My health improved greatly when I started giving thanks to my body, mind, and soul for being radiantly healthy and beautiful and being the perfect vehicle for me in this lifetime, and for providing me wonderful experiences of body, mind, and soul. And so I have really, really good health compared to other people my age. And so it made all the difference in the world. And just, I'm short, fluffy, and I'd rather be like, 5 foot, at least 6, and with long legs and perky boobs, but it's not me. So this is what I got to work with. So let's make it the best we can. But when I started giving thanks to it, it started performing so much better. So it's made a great difference in my health overall. So you can shift and change and create the life that you want for yourself just with your thoughts and your ideas. So that goes all the way back to getting out of fearful situations, to learning to trust, to teaching yourself to be happy. We have to teach. Isn't that weird? But sometimes we have to teach ourselves to be happy because we focus so long on being unhappy, which leads to more fear, more negativity, more everything that you don't want. So,
and it's also learning how to raise your own vibration. And part of that, when we talk about our imagination being part of that as well, there's times like if I feel like I'm angry or upset or frustrated, I will go back and talk about and remind myself all the times Spirit showed up for me, remind myself all the miracles that I had in my life, remind myself how Spirit changed this situation or that situation, reminding myself how powerful we are in that moment. And I think that when you go, that's the same thing as gratitude. It's going back and being grateful for the times that everything worked itself out. I remind myself at how I, thought there was no way out of something and all of a sudden a miracle happened.
Yeah. Cassie just said that it's not weird. We're not taught to be happy. We're not taught to be happy. We're taught to be something other than what we are always. At least women are, and not so much anymore, but we used to be a lot more than we are now. And so that other people have more than you, they're happier than you are, and they're probably not, but we're taught that. So it's just reconditioning your mind with positive reinforcement, just like you said, in the mirror, talking to yourself, Joy. That's a positive enforcement moment, and who's going to be with you if not yourself? I mean, duh, that's a given, but we're not taught that. So it's relearning the beauty of all that you are.
And the most powerful thing I have to share with people is make sure it's not your mother or dad's voice in your head.
Yeah, really. Yeah, not telling you over and over again what you shouldn't be doing, right?
Right.
You know, I'm sure they didn't start out that way, but after you aggravated them enough, I'm, being a mother myself, I know how that works. So, but I have beautiful children and grandchildren. Yeah, depend on yourself. You're the radiant sun of your personal world, so act like it. Be the powerful, shining, bright star that you are. So, it sounds easy, and it's not. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it is very doable. It's just redirecting your thoughts and your ideas. So,
And ask yourself 2 questions. The 2 questions you want to ask yourself is, am I worried about the future or am I worried about the past? And
right.
see if you're in those dimensions that's keeping you out of the present moment. So if you have a fear that comes up, how to be powerful. The next one was being powerful when you were in fear. Well, then ask yourself that question. Am I focused on the future or am I focused on what happened in the past?
Right.
And
so
if I'm focused in those 2, then that's the ego.
Right.
Let me be in the present moment.
Right. So what you're teaching yourself is to living with mindful intent.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing who and what you are, to recognize your emotions, to recognize energy outside yourself. And that's another thing, is to recognize whether or not you're picking up on somebody else's energy, or is this your own personal energy. So, all of these factors, but being aware will make all the difference. Just knowing that you're powerful and that you're aware of how you can stop whatever's going on and create something else, and to use your imagination to do so, and to bring forth that vital life force that was with you when you're a child, and to bring that back into radiance. And so I think that's what we're all learning to do. We're learning how to play, aren't we?
We are.
We can't get out and go to much, but maybe tomorrow,
T also says the world teaches us to compare ourselves to others and strive to be like them. We have to release that and own that we are exactly who we need to be in this lifetime. And I could not agree more with that.
Right. My guys tell me that I look the way I do and I sound the way I do. It's like one day I'm going to get this grown-up voice, I think, but not anytime real soon, I guess. But anyway, that I look the way I'm supposed to look, so that people will relate to me and easily. And, I don't know if you've ever known anybody that was just so beautiful and perfect. They were just unapproachable. So sometimes it's like that. I used to think I could do with a little more of that, but I'm really happy with how I am now. And so I'm learning to appreciate how I am now, because that makes you bringing forth the people you need to interact with. And you have your own sparkling, effervescent life force available to you if you recognize that. So you have everything with you. So we're just trying to help people remember that they brought all their luggage with them. Just because they can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It's kind of the invisible stuff that you're lugging around, So, but it's still there and you can use it. So use your utensils, use your tools, use your powers, and be happy, be healthy.
And we're also taught to be competitive with each other.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's probably the biggest one, is we're always taught that we have to be competitive with each other because there's not enough.
Oh,
and what I remind myself is what happens is, if I feel like I'm in that place of being competitive, I go, well, wait a minute, there's enough for all. There's enough for all. There's enough for all. So I remind myself that there is enough for everyone.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
I am going to go ahead, Kay, and I'm going to unmute everyone. And if anyone has a question, that feel free to turn around and ask any questions. We're almost out of time, Kay.
Oh, geez, this has gone by fast, hasn't it?
It has. We have a comment from Christy that you really enjoyed this discussion. Thanks for joining us, Christy.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Joy. It's a pleasure to see you.
It was great to see you too. So we're going to go ahead and end it here. I want to thank everyone who joined us.
Yes,
I hope you really got something out of this. I will be sharing this on Facebook And I will be sharing it on my website as well. And Kay, of course, you'll get a copy of this as well. And my guest today was Kay Horn. Kay, thank you so much for joining me. I love having these conversations.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.